Friends, at this time we are going to begin the funeral services for Loretta, Lorie, Iris, Shapiro. If you have a cell phone or a pager, I would ask and invite you to take a moment to turn it off or place it in this silent mode. And officiating today's services will be Rabbi Ann Person.
Death has taken our beloved Loretta. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For Lorie's love that united us in life and which death cannot sever. For her companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness, and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us ever new messages of God's nearness. It tells of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. Esainai el heharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Esainai el heharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri, me'im Adonai, Oseh. Shamayim va'aretz, Ezri, me'im Adonai, Oseh, Shamayim va'aretz. I lift my eyes to the mountains, from where is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. I'd like to invite up Rabbi Debbie Nesselson to lead us in the 23rd Psalm, which can be found on your handout.
The 23rd Psalm is perhaps the most comforting of all of the Psalms because it reminds us that we are never alone and that we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. We never remain mired in it. We walk through it. Please join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. We are assembled with our friends in the darkness that has fallen upon them. We raise our voices together to the source of life, asking for comfort and strength. We need light when gloom darkens our lives. We need fortitude and courage when pain and loss assail us. May we find these in God, who preserves from destruction all that is good. Let us find them too in loved ones and companions who do God's work by binding up the wounds of the stricken. Who among us has not passed through trials and bereavements? Some bear fresh wounds in their hearts and therefore feel more keenly the kinship of sorrow. Others, whose days of mourning are more remote, still recall the comfort that sympathy brought to their sorrowing hearts. May our sharing of sorrow and our deeds of solace bring comfort to the loved ones of Lorie. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach. God has given and God has taken away. Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people, we are well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us, yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave and that there is strength in faith. With Job, we say, Adonai natan, God, you have given us a loved one who will not be forgotten. For all that was good and enduring in Lorie's life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai lakach, God, you have taken away. We pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and love, as we now say, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. Blessed be the name of God, now and forever. This morning, I'd like to invite up some of Lorie's family to say some words about her. Adam?
Nani. Unconditional love. That describes Nani in 2 words. From her family, her friends, to complete strangers, love and joy is what she sent to everyone, no matter what. Her compassion for other people came from love, always trying to understand others and not take things personally, even if she received negativity, gruff people, or even insults. She loved people for who they are, at their core, and never judged them. Nani was a mother figure to me. She even called me her 4th son. I have such rich memories of her being part of every single significant moment in my childhood, every birthday, graduation, holiday, or family gathering. I used to ride my bike in Northbrook to her house, right up on the back patio, and she pretended to be shocked at my arrival just to make me laugh, because that's all she wanted, was to make you feel good, laugh, smile, and feel loved. We'd swim in her pool, cook egg drop soup together, and just talk. And we never stopped talking, sharing life philosophies, talking through relationship problems, and beneath it all, Nani just felt deep compassion for people, always trying to understand where they were coming from, their point of view, and help shine light on the shared human experience. When I was a kid, Nani would make me cards, collages, and artwork to commemorate milestones or birthdays. And I think they were cheesy and weird, but that's because I didn't know any better. That's how Nani expressed her love. Imagine the intention and the purposeful energy, the love that would go into each element she had hand-selected, cut out, and glued to the very piece she was curating just for you. It was the ultimate act of love, and I cherish those pieces now. I didn't realize how much Nani shaped who I became until these last few years, when she told me over and over again how proud of me she was, and I never said it back. When I was by her side just a week ago, I told Nani how much it meant to me. To hear those words, and I told her how proud I am of her, who she is, the love she gives, and the influence she had on me and who I've become. Nani used to say, when you give someone a hug, let them be the first to let go. She even has a piece of art that was hanging on the wall above her bedroom. And when I stood by her side holding her hand, I looked up at that quote and will never forget it. Nani's legacy will live on inside me every time I give a hug and feel the gift of a loving embrace just for a little bit longer.
Next, I'd like to invite up her son, Brad.
Mom, Lore, whatever she's called, we'd always joke around, and I'd say she's been like a mother to me my whole life. First of all, I'd like to thank each of you for your personal relationship with Lorie. She loved everyone who touched her life, and she theirs. A special acknowledgement to my brother Robert, our family's patriarch, Olga for her endless love and support, my nephews alphabetically, Adam, David, and Jason for the deep love, the passion, and one of the most important aspects to Lorie, unedited emotion, depth, and grandchildness. She loved how they rebranded her from Grandma to Nani to Nan, and finally to Nonsense, which is a good reflection of who she was. I took her brother out yesterday in Arizona, 96-year-old Ross, for a Dairy Queen, and we had a great time reminiscing, and he shared some pictures and gave me some art of his in memory of her. And then finally to our adopted daughter, our only sister, Lorie's caregiver, who's been by her side for the last 2 years, every day. Thank you, Tammy. And embracing to all of Lorie's longtime friends here and afar, I truly wish there was a time to share a story of each of you that she has told me about, but we'd be here for days, which she'd probably enjoy. But for those watching afar from Arizona in Leisure World and in their Shalom group, and for where she lived last year in Broadway Mesa Village, everyone there was just outstanding. Knowing Lorie as deeply as I do, as each of us do, rather than spend this brief time sharing my very intimate relationship with her, here's a few highlights. The daily touch. Every time Lorie went to the dining room, she'd light up the room. That's her. There at 91 years old, she found her new boyfriend. Yep, Bob, 96. They were deeply in love. For me, it felt like watching two kids who just discovered that each other's best friend. For literally hours and hours and hours on end, they'd sit in front of the fireplace by the dining room, holding hands, smiling, sharing stories, and naturally napping. For me, it was like watching the two kids discover and fall in love. They always ended their time together with just a really nice, gentle kiss. And I'd just pause and say, they're both so happy, and they were. It was a week ago this morning. Very early in the stillness of night, surrounded by Robert, his son, my nephew Adam, and we held her hand and touched her arms and spoke quietly to her, each in our own special words. I was sitting by her side, holding her hand, mine on top and bottom. Robert and Adam quietly left the room. I spoke with her. I shared my dreams, as I did when I was a child. I thanked her for everything that she is, was, and will be for all of us. When I was done, I kissed her forehead and said my last goodbye. I closed the door behind me. As soon as I came out, Robert and Adam asked if I was okay. I said, with tears in my eyes, yes, why? Well, Mom died 45 minutes ago. And I had no clue. We were just talking, she and I could hear her without hearing her voice. It was like our swan song. And I know she would have wanted it that way. In closing, a very short story about how she dramatically changed my life a few years ago. We were thinking about her mom and her dad, my granny, my grandpa, and she said she thinks of them often, but can't remember their voices. And that's when it came to me that before she and my dad die, I need to record them. 9 years ago, I recorded my dad just before he slipped deeply into dementia, and I have over an hour of footage of him talking. He recalled one event in his childhood, and he cried for 10 minutes straight, and I let the camera roll. I've never seen him be like that before, and I've not watched that video once, ever, since I recorded it. One day I'll have the strength to do that. I did that with my mom, too. So I share and encourage you to do the same. Just generation doesn't read. We don't know about future generations, but we grew up telling stories and reading books. That doesn't happen now, and we don't know what the future holds, but we all know that people love watching videos. Like, I remember that. And I did it for a friend of mine, Todd, and his family. And I gathered literally hundreds of pictures and videos, voicemails, everything, and created this beautiful story. And God love my nephew, David. I can see you smiling. He's a brilliant editor. He took my raw material and turned it into a piece of art. Today, 3 years later, I've gotten multiple calls, texts, and emails from Todd that said it was the greatest gift he's ever received. And so that's why I feel so passionate about sharing that, if your folks are alive, or you telling your story, because what you don't get in a book is that personal, emotional feel. And that's a big memory, as it is with Lorie. And that's how she impacted my life, and that's how I got to do this. So all this stemmed from my loving, humble, generous, and compassionate mom.
I'd like to invite up her son, Robert.
Thank you, Brad and Adam. Thank each of you for sharing this heartfelt time with our family. A special thanks to my sons David and Adam, and Brad, and Tammy, her caregiver, for her support and love during her life. More importantly, the last few days that we all spent together, sharing love and helping her be comfortable. Also wanted to acknowledge Olga, my wife, and our family, and Mary, my executive assistant, who is here, and Therese, and our office team for their support. To each of you here today, in person or virtual, who supported Mom during her life in a very, very meaningful way. I'd like to share a few perspectives that many of you may not have known, which will not change who she is. It will just give you a deeper appreciation for why she is and was. Mom lived with integrity, with and from her heart, always exuding love, expressing her gratitude, following her passions, and more importantly, looking for the good in others. Her most valuable assets were her relationships with her family and friends. I sort of came to that realization myself a number of years ago. And I'd always hear these private equity guys talking about the value of these businesses, and I've just always looked at my relationships as my most valuable assets. I'd like to begin with a poem that Mom wrote in 1963, 61 years ago. When she was 30, I was 9, Brad was 7, and Brother Stephen was only 4. The poem is entitled Colorful Life. In my mind comes intrigue, so sweet to discover. Life is not vague, it is intense technicolor. And all the time I thought life was gray, not black and white, not always gay. I made certain to allow for the drabness of blight, the yellow of daytime, and the stark black of night. When everything we see around, sky of blue and dusty ground, are all of special color. Red for heat, cool of blue, the clean white, green grass with dew. The fruit of peach with hope in each, future's always colorful, not always gray, and you think of this now, you may recall it one day. I spoke to Mom this morning, and that's why I'm wearing a pink shirt. A little bit of history. This will really help give some perspective. Mom was a first-generation American. Bill, her father, was a graphic artist, and he designed the catalogs for Schultz VP Company. He joined the Army at age 16 when he ran away from home because he couldn't get along with his father. He was a very traditional, old-fashioned man, and there were challenges with my mom and him. She didn't feel loved. It's not that he didn't love her, but she didn't feel love. Her mother, our grandmother, Ida, was Russian. Ironically, came from Odessa, which is where Olga was. Well, her mother died when she was in 8th grade. She had limited education. She didn't like her mom, that her dad had remarried. Mom's formal education stopped in high school, where she went to Van Steuben High School, where she then afterwards took singing and actress classes. Her values, all of that had a great deal of influence on me and our family in our lives growing up. She was very loving and very kind, believed in deep family connections, always had a positive attitude. She looked for the good within all people, and as a little kid, that was hard. I'd see people that I thought were mean, and she'd be looking at them, Mom, and she'd say, Rob, they're nice people. There's something nice about them. I said, Mom, how could you find someone nice in this person? And she did. She appreciated the religious rituals and the holidays. She was very, very conservative with her spending, honest, and probably one of her most highest values was her integrity. She had a bunch of natural gifts. One was developing deep relationships. She lived with and from her heart. She was a terrific listener. She was very intuitive. She didn't ask for much other than attention. In our immediate family, Brad and I, since she was an actress, even in the nursing home, they always said, like she would go in, the nurses would go in and say, are you okay? And then they knew there was significant things wrong, and I'm fine. They turned to me and say, she's a great actress. I said, we got to figure out what's really wrong. Don't ask her what's wrong, because you're not going to find out. But she did recognize what was truly important in life. And even during the last 6 months, we talked every day. She would call me every morning when she got up at 9:30, which was a great time for her. I was in meetings with 19 people at the time. Every time she called, I'd pick up the phone. She goes, "Oh, hi, how are you doing, Rob? How's Olga?" I said, "She's fine, Mom. How are you?" And she'd tell me. I said, "Is there anything important for us to talk about right now?" She says, "No." I said, "Well, is it okay if I call you later today afternoon, like around 2 or 3? She goes, "That's fine, good, because I'm in a meeting with like 25 people." And every day this recurred for weeks and months. She was passionate, and she pursued her passions with an unwavering commitment. She loved people and relationships. She wrote poems and poetries and made cards that everyone got. And to Adam's point, when we were younger and we got all these cards, it's like, "Mom, what's this about?" And then as you look back, you see all the details, the pictures, the heart, and the thought that went into them. She was always supporting other people. And as an actress, she was always on. And she always wanted to look good. The nurses would say she was vain. I would go to the hospital and see her. She goes, "You can't look at me. I don't look good." I said, "Mom, you're 90 years old. It's okay not to look good." She goes, "Don't look at me." Towards the end, we were the last 24 to 48 hours. She was singing in her hospital bed and reciting a few of her poems by memory. One of our most memorable moments with her is when she was much younger. She played Charlie Chaplin in a community theater. She just had a very true concern for humanity. She was known by many names. It was hard to keep track. She started with Loretta, then she went to Retta, and she went to Lorie, Mom, Nonsense, and then Brad and I mostly just called her Mimi. She never understood why we were calling her Mimi, which is good. Her favorite characteristic traits, which have become cornerstones for me and our family, she always loved looking good for people. Dressed well, presented herself well, regardless of how sick she was, how much energy she did or did not have. You'd go in her hospital room and she was not in great shape, and she would immediately cheer up, so you would think she's fine. One of her most favorite lines was, "Everything is fine, except things that aren't." I said, "Mom, I see what's fine. Can you tell me what's hurting you?" And she couldn't tell me that. She was terrific at saying, "I love you," expressing sincere appreciation for those who helped her, asking if someone is okay, but really meaning it. She was a great listener, which has helped me a lot in life. Always wanted to look good, sometimes in vain, in the hospital, the nursing home, when she was acting. And as others have said, she's very nurturing and sweet. So what roles did Mom serve? She was a loving child, but often misunderstood, as she felt. She was creative, loving, not a great student, and as she got older, she thought she was self-diagnosed with a learning disability. We don't know that, but she kept telling us that as she got older. But she was loving and supportive and confident as a daughter, as a sibling, as a spouse, as a mother to her birth sons, and many others that she's formally or informally adopted, such as Steve Good here, who's my oldest friend since I'm 5 years old. He's not my oldest friend, he's just our longest friendship. And she was a friend to everybody, even strangers. She would befriend many people, irrespective of who they were. I'll never forget when we were when I was much younger and David was younger, we would walk in the city and he'd want to stop and give the homeless money and attention. And that is the way that my mother would have been. So what will I remember most? How much she cared for others, how much she loved her family and friends, her desire to share with a loved one through poetry, poems, and card making, which has led me to send my note cards out to people. Her commitment to her family, her unconditional love, looking good for the good in others. And she didn't care how much someone knew, she just knew how much they cared. She was always sincere, empathetic, and loving, and would say things like, "It's not as important to say what you'll do for me as it is to do what you say." So in closing, Mom, your love for others is your legacy and will always be cherished by those who knew and respected you. Your presence has and will always be the greatest gift that we could ever receive from you. I love you, and I will never forget all the life lessons that I have learned and, more importantly, observed from your being. Thanks for being you.
When our loved ones die, there is a hole that is left in our hearts that feels cavernous at times. Without our loved one's physical presence in our life, so much is lost to us. We will no longer hear the sound of her voice. We will no longer see the smile on her face. We will no longer feel the warmth of her embrace. What we are blessed with is the memory of our time with her, happy moments and sad. We remember the ways she made us feel. We remember the conversations we had with her. We remember the love we shared with her. Our loved ones leave a legacy of memory behind as a blessing for us all. Our beloved Loretta, Iris, Mazur, Bensman, Shapiro wrote this stirring poem in 1948 when she was only 17. Life. Life is beautiful, yes, a beautiful, wonderful puzzle, a mystery never to be solved. Man, woman, animals, flowers, trees, grass, all producing, dying, and repeating again. So I live in a mystery of strange thoughts, yearning to learn more, to teach what I know, to be remembered as having known this is life, only to die peacefully at the end. Even at 17, Lorie reveled in the mystery of life. Loretta, named for the movie star Loretta Young, was born in Chicago, Illinois on November 17, 1932, to William and Ida Mazur, and of course, Big Brother Ross. The Mazur clan settled into family life in North Park, where Loretta lived for 18 years. Lorie graduated from Von Steuben High School in 1950 and chose not to attend college because of her ongoing learning disability, which created great trauma throughout her life. Her father, an ad designer, inspired her lifelong passion for art in all of its expressions, and her mother taught her love and devotion. Every day in her childhood, Lorie and Ida would ask each other, "Have I told you lately that I love you?" And in fact, throughout her life, these are the things that would define her: art and love. Lorie said that the lessons she learned from her father about art were more than just about art. Rather, they were about an introspection into the world of imagination, color, communication, design, interpretation, and the psychology of the art of human expression. Her own artistry could be seen in her poetry, her singing, her acting, directing, and yes, even in the collages that she made for the people she loved and for every occasion. And love you, love you she did. That love that she learned from her mother, she showered upon her own sons, Robert, Brad, and Stephen, as well as her grandkids, Adam, David, and Jason. And of course, her great-grandchildren, Raven and Mia. To you, she wasn't merely Lorie, she was Nani. She was the person who you could talk to for hours and play basketball with. She was the woman who taught you what unconditional love is and could always find the good in people. She was the woman who gave you some of the best advice and probably should have been a therapist. She was Nani, the one who wanted to know everything about you and wanted you to know all of the things about her as well. Of course, her love was not limited to her children and grandchildren, nieces and nephews and cousins, old friends and new, caretakers and even old flames felt Lorie's love and warmth and gratitude. Now, Lorie wasn't perfect. Even she was one to say everything's fine except what's not. And there were things that weren't always fine. She wasn't always great with the nuts and bolts of life. When she couldn't figure out why the printer wasn't working, she would need someone else to come and plug it in. She was constantly looking for her glasses that were usually hiding on top of her head. And she may have started a small fire once when she turned on the oven forgetting that she was using it for storage. Thank God for Rob and Brad and her loving caregiver, Tammy, who have taken such good care of her and made sure that the nuts and bolts of life were always in place for her. While Lorie may not have been great with all the technicals of life, she was really, really good at the living part of life. She embraced the fullness of life. She was fascinated with being alive and with everyone she met. She lived fully and dramatically with her big personality and her sometimes dirty sense of humor, with her caftans and her animal prints, and even with her Post-it notes and scrapbooks. Lorie basked in the colorfulness of the world, as she expressed in the poem that Rob so beautifully read, Colorful Life. We will remember Lorie for her color and her quirks, for teaching us what Technicolor could be. But also, we will remember Nani for her compassion and generosity of spirit, for teaching us to say hello to every single person along the way, no matter how long it takes us to get to lunch. Most of all, we will remember Loretta, Iris, Mazur, Bensman, Shapiro for her great love, her love of life, her love of art, and her love of us. Zichrona livracha, may the memory of Lorie Shapiro always be a blessing to us all. Merritt Malloy wrote a beautiful poem called Epitaph that I think speaks well to Lorie. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. And I say again, Zichrona livracha, may the memory of Lorie Shapiro, the love that she shared with everyone so freely, may it always be a blessing to us all. Into your care, O God, we entrust the spirit of Lorie Shapiro. For you keep faith with your children in death as in life. Sustain us that we may meet with serenity the mysteries that lie ahead, knowing that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you, God, are with us, a loving friend in whom we put our trust. You are the light of our life, our hope in eternity. Please rise for El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim shochen b'mromim, hamsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina, im kedoshim u'toharim kezohar akia mazhirim, et nishmat Loretta bat William ve'Ida, ve'halcha le'olama, ba'al harachamim yastireha beseter knafav le'olamim, v'yitzor b'yitzor hachayim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachalata, v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava, v'nomar. Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Loretta, Iris, Mazur, Bensman, Shapiro, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us all say, Amen. May the Holy One of blessing, from whom all things come and to whom all things return, give us light and peace on this day of grief and mourning, and may our service of memory for Lorie bring comfort and strength. You may be seated.
Friends, this concludes the services here at the chapel. The interment and burial service will continue at West Lawn Cemetery in Norridge. For those of you traveling with us in the funeral procession to the cemetery, please keep the following safety precautions in mind. Please make sure that your bright headlights and your four-way hazard flashers are on at all times. Please be sure to obtain an orange funeral safety sticker for your windshield, and we will be providing several of the cars in the procession with a magnetic orange flag to be placed on top of your car. Please travel as close as safety permits to the car in front of you to avoid any gaps in our procession. And for your own safety and security, I would suggest not speaking or texting while driving to the cemetery in the funeral procession. As we make our way through the various intersections, if the car in front of you goes through the intersection, even if the traffic signal changes its color magically, please proceed with caution. Feel free to use your horn liberally and make every attempt to continue on in the procession. Seems like a good idea. Following the interment and the Shiva this afternoon will be at Bob and Olga's residence at 3150 Warbler, Warbler, yeah, thank you, place. It's a very hard bird to talk about, in Highland Park, and that'll be from 4 until 8 p.m. This afternoon and into the evening. That information is available in the service folder that you should have received when you came in, and if you did not receive one, we do have those for you as you leave. For those of you joining us online, that information is also available on our website. The following individuals have been asked to serve as pallbearers: Jason Bensman, Adam Bensman, Steve Good, Paul Hines, and David Bensman. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise and stand in place. For the pallbearers to please come forward to my right as we escort the family, the casket, and the rabbi from the chapel.